Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the greatest / worst show on the entire planet. My name is Nathan Fabricant. You are watching another... It's not a top tier and tip tutorial. I'm clearly too lazy to do those anymore, but I'm going to call this a little break it down session. And we have the new patch that just came out. I'll flip the interface for those of you who are easily triggered. I'm on the bottom. My name is Nate. I'm great, never late, etc. And in the top left, I'm playing against my boy Paco Mike. This game took place on the North American server yesterday, the day that the new patch came out, on the 22nd of January, 2019. So what you need to know is there was a big patch, some stuff changed. There were some buffs to Warp Gate and Blink. And I'm kind of just trying to figure out how to do some meme builds, right? The Battlecruiser Yamato gun got nerfed. They made it take a whole extra 60 seconds real time to research, so it's up from like 46 to 100 seconds now, which is pretty long. But I asked myself, I said, Nathan, if I was trying to defend against a potential Protoss cheese now that Warp Gate finishes so much faster, and if I was trying to put on some pressure and maybe go into a cheeky Battlecruiser, how would I go about doing that? And then the answer came to me. I would do a Terran versus Terran build, where I build my depot, then I get my first gas, then I build my barracks, then I get my second gas, and I don't take SCVs off the gas. I'm going to do exactly what I would do in a TVT, because Reapers and Hellions are surprisingly effective in the very early stages of the game against Stalkers, particularly when there's low numbers of them. A couple of Reapers and a Hellion or two can absolutely devastate an early Protoss defense, and what this can allow you to do is build up momentum for a huge punch straight into the heart of the Protoss player. This game gets weird. Be warned, you are going to see something that people will be posting about on the Battle.net forum saying, this is why they made the patch. It works. Everything is perfect. And you know what I say to that? Probably. Probably, ladies and gentlemen. So this is, as I said, you're going to build the Reapers. We're not going to stop building Reapers. You're going to build Hellions out of the factory. Not going to stop building Hellions out of the factory. Now, a professional player might say this build is terrible. But just for context purposes, at the moment that this game was played, I was roughly 5,500 MMR. My opponent, the Protoss player, was approximately 5,670 MMR. He might have been 5,700, but I'm not trying to make this win seem any better than it is. I gained like 25 MMR from winning this game. Oh, spoiler alert, I win this game. So, with that being said, the Protoss player is opening up with something relatively, I would say, unusual. You do see the Adept still sometimes, but he scouted that it was, of course, an early play by me to build up some tech and infrastructure. So you usually see a Stalker opening to try and push stuff back. But this is when you come up, right? You bring your Reapers, you bring your Hellion, and you say, okay, I'm gonna fight against this, pick off some of the probes, and you don't shy away from the Stalker. You get a lot of damage in on that bad boy. Try to micro the Hellion back, and those early kills on that Stalker are really big because the Stalker moves much more slowly. Oh, by the way, did I mention we're gonna get a fusion core when that starport finishes, and we're just building Hellions and Reapers. So the Hellions are gonna continue to be built and rallied across the map while the Reapers do damage in the main base. We're going to go try to pick off some probes here. Now, of course, always important to keep in mind, Terran versus Protoss is a currently very polarizing matchup due to the rate at which Protoss players can build workers. So doing a strategy like this really allows you to heavily hamstring the Protoss economy by pulling them into several different directions at once. Obviously, this build is going to do a lot better versus economic openings from the Protoss such as this one. The worker count is evened, and you say, Nathan, what does that even mean, though? The Protoss player is still on 2 bases. You don't have squat. Well, the Protoss player has also been thrown a little bit off track with their strategy. My Battlecruiser is in production. I'm starting my command center after the Battlecruiser. But the Protoss player was going for a Robo. And it looks like, after building this Immortal, he wants to take a Warp Prism across the map and try to deal some damage to me. And this is where the game gets really interesting. So I'm going to get the rest of my add-ons. After the Battlecruiser starts, you go into everything else. Yamato, you don't really rush it as much. Yamato is, it's kind of like A1. You don't need it if you have good BC micro, but sometimes it's nice to have on the side. So the Reaper, of course, this map, this is one of the new ones that's been added, King's Cove. You have a big Reaper cliff. This is not a map where Protoss players can block a Reaper from getting in. And I just constantly bring the pressure. Like I said, this Protoss player is about 200 MMR higher than me. So if you want to use some sort of weird skill excuse, this guy is better than me. And to be frank with all of you, this is actually the first time I've beaten this guy in about 2 months. So there you have it. Battlecruiser is going to come out. I build a bunker because why not? Now, I'm actually thinking that I want to use my BC to try and run into the Protoss army. I don't find the Protoss army. I actually teleport at the last second, right before I would have seen it. And I'm just going to go into his main. Because battlecruisers wreck prods. What does the Protoss player do? He has to recall. Because he's like, well, I need all my stalkers. He's going to start a Twilight Council. He's going to go into Blink. And this right here is why the battlecruiser rush is extremely good still versus Protoss. In fact, I would say that it has been heavily buffed in this patch. Because the Protoss player, especially on a lot of these maps, is very hard to hit the battlecruiser. Because you have a lot of space that you can just fly away to. You can go chill by the coral reef. You know, we're on the Australian server. Anyway, observers are fast boys now. But the best counter that Protoss has to battlecruiser is the Tempest. Now, the Tempest did get nerfed. The Tempest had its speed reduced in this patch. So, and its acceleration reduced. So the Tempest not only moves slower, but it actually doesn't reach that max speed as fast as it used to either. So the Tempest has been brought in line with a lot of other air units. And this makes that battlecruiser opening so much better. And the reason for that is because of those changes to the Tempest, they are not really that great to go straight into. You can easily be overwhelmed. You can no longer retreat effectively without a lot of support units behind your Tempest, which is the biggest problem that they had in the previous patch. So I'm going to take my expansion, move that command center over. I've got a third command center. And you might say, Nathan, well, what about a counterattack? How is my opponent going to counterattack me when I've got a battlecruiser on the other side of the map? It's a trick question. He's not. BC... Seal deals damage, focus down the weak units, pull back, and I'm just chilling. By the way, I'm going to build another BC, skate and kill that observer, and then I'm going to teleport into here. And he's like, okay, well, I'm warping in stalkers here. I'm going to fire my Yamato. At some point. Eventually, I'll do it. Maybe I'll run away first. This battlecruiser came in, killed a stalker, and teleported home. The Reaper is still in the third base. And there you go. Nice little pickoff. Gets a couple more stalkers. For reference, the cost of repairing a battlecruiser from 1 hit point to maximum is 100 minerals and roughly 75 gas. Which means that as long as your battlecruiser isn't actually at 1 health, that gas cost is made up for the cost of a stalker, which is 125 minerals and 50 gas. So killing 2 stalkers means that a battlecruiser has always accomplished insane damage. Killing a stalker and a probe, battlecruiser has made it worth the repair. And that's how you trade cost effectively. It's always important to repair. Protoss player is going to come to attack me. Guess what? Battlecruisers are great at getting rid of warp prisms. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And he's going to recall his immortal home. Little guy barely survived 1 hit point, by the way. Real American hero. I think I lose this BC. I got a little bit overzealous there with the cooldown. Protoss player is going to take his third base. So you can see here, even though I'm not expanding crazy fast, my strategy's focus is it's going to really slow down the game. And especially for those of you playing at lower MMRs, lower leagues, you're going to find that a strategy like this is really, really fun. Because that early Reaper Hellion opening that I was talking about, not only can it pick off 1 or 2 stalkers in the early game, but it actually does a phenomenal job at dealing with proxy play early. Because what you usually get pushed by, 1 or 2 stalkers, maybe a Zealot. 2 Reapers and 2 Hellions can deal with that. Now this battlecruiser, I just kind of rally them across the map. I'm like, all right, Yamato, kill, teleport home. Chitty chitty bang bang, ladies and gentlemen. Killing that 1 stalker makes it worth it. It's about an even trade to fully repair the BC after killing 1 stalker. By the way, just even if you don't get enough damage done, do not let your BC die. It is never worth it to let a unit like this die. The build time, the investment, the tying up of your tech, you don't want to lose it. So the Protoss player naturally is forced into building a Stargate because really there's nothing else that they can do to deal with the fact that I've got a giant behemoth aircraft, excuse me, Minotaur class aircraft, flying around the map, blowing everything to heck. So battlecruisers are just doing their thing. So he's going to go into the Stargate, and the transition is going to be, I like to play mech a lot. By the way, these new skins are so cool. Did you know you can get these skins in the new war chest? Did you know I have an affiliate link for the war chest? You can literally buy this war chest and give me a cut. It's amazing. Check it out. The link's going to be below. So he's going to go into Fleet Bacon because he wants to get Tempest. And I'm like, I'm just going into mech now. I'm going to get Liberator Range, the advanced ballistics upgrade, and I'm going to get my armory. And this is probably the coolest part. You squeeze out a couple of siege tanks to make sure that you're defending yourself against the Stalker counterattack. This observer, oh my goodness, this peeping Tom saw everything all game long. So he's got a big army of stalkers. But I'm not just building battle cruisers, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to use the Marines from that early barracks. Even though they have no upgrades, bunkers are still going to bunk. So the stalkers are going to come up here. And he's just going to get pushed back. There's really nothing that the player can do in this situation. So now my battle cruisers come on down towards the third base. He's got his Tempest on the way. And I'm still harassing. I teleport this guy in because I'm like, all right, well, I just want to keep him on his toes, pull his army home, force him to recall. I don't know about the Tempest at this point in time yet. But I'm getting the rest of my upgrades. I'm going for vehicle armor. Vehicle armor is always the most important when you're playing mech these days because a lot of the units are just very ability based, or you're using units that have insanely high burst damage like the Thor or the siege tank, units that don't really benefit as much from upgrades as, say, a unit like the battle cruiser, which honestly, you don't really need upgrades for a battle cruiser to be able to fly in and kill probes. And for the purposes of this game, my opponent hasn't even gotten a forge, so not exactly worried about the BC losing its effectiveness as this progresses on. So battle cruisers meme, and this one's kind of dancing around with this boy. The other one had 28 kills, this one's got 9. So the Tempests are coming out. And we start to produce Thors. And you know what? I did play a couple of games with the new Thors on this patch, and I have to say, they are surprisingly effective. My first loss this season was a Terran versus Terran, where the dude got Thors. And honestly, I'm like, I had an early contain, I killed his third base. I'm like super ahead on economy. I get a ton of Vikings and Ravens. Dude literally just built like 8 Thors and rolled me because they have such good range now. They are amazing at zoning out units. So missile turret gets, you know, the shots of a lifetime. Some adepts are going to come pressure, bring the pain. You've got the Hellions, you've got the Liberators. I'm going to liberate zone that ramp. Liberator helps clean up. Battle cruisers are still harassing. Tempests are the only unit that's going to be really effective against this. Warp out, wax on, wax off, warp in, warp out. And he's saying, all right, I'm getting the Tempest. I'm chrono boosting him out. So this is a standard Protoss, right? You want to be able to deal with those units. You want to deal with those battle cruisers. He's getting his air weapons. Never took this gas, by the way. Does he know that he never took that one? I don't know. Anyway, based on what this game has shown us, I'm sure you guys all realize by now that the impact of causing a lot of chaos early on really, really, really helped. Like I said, the player is 200 MMR above me. You know, I really felt like I had to grind it out to be able to pick him apart like this and put myself into a winning position. So I'm going to come down and secure my 4th base, right? The Stalkers are all here. He did not bring the Tempest. They're all back home. But I've got tanks. I've got Hellions. I've got Thors now. He's going to bring his Stalkers over, dive on some of these siege tanks. But my mech army has a ton of firepower. He picks off 2 of the tanks, sure. But the Thors and the Hellions are actually able to do a lot of damage to chase these units. Boom! Yamato the Immortal into smithereens. By the way, MVP Observer. I actually didn't even see this when I played the game. Obviously, I didn't see it because it's been here the entire game. And I'm going to send this Liberator over to harass. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to bring the rest of my army down now. Let's go. Let's bring it around town. Liberator gets, what, 2 kills? Meh. This Observer in peep mode.
Hey, your base is under attack. It's a trap.
He's using the Artosis announcer. But I'm going to focus down some probes, pull back, and I've got a big army ready to fight. And you know what I say? You got all your Tempests here, don't you? Well, my battle cruisers won't be that effective. Let's just send them over to your expansion while you have to deal with my main army. And these Thors have so much range against the Tempest, man. I swear, we're straight up watching some artillery movie. We got trebuchets lambasting those Tempests. Meanwhile, the battle cruisers clean up the mineral line, make their way into the main, and he has to pull everything over. He's pulling all the Tempest over. I kill the 4th base. The Thors are doing their job, and the Protoss player is going to make an amazing hold here because he is a good player. And this is where it gets tough, man. The Thor's doing everything that it can in this situation. And it's just so hard for the Tempest to break this. So he's going to bring everything that he can to try and punch through this. And he will eventually clean this up. But as you can tell, I've still got my expansion up. I didn't really saturate this properly. I got really focused on microing the fight. But the majority of the Tempests do get cleaned up. I also mixed in some Vikings for good measure. But the Thor, if it can actually fight, it does do a lot of damage versus both the Tempest and pretty much everything else. Fighting the Stalkers in these low counts early on really works in their favor. Random hero marine there dies a horrible, painful death. And then I've still got a couple of Hellions to try and do some harass with. I'm going to finally get mech +1, which you need for blue flame Hellions to 2-shot probes. Fun fact. But he's still building Tempest. And I've still got Thors. And, I mean, at this point, the game is pretty much over, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I've got a great setup. I did a lot of harass the entire game, non-stop attacks against the Protoss player. And I basically gave up a lot of my early economy to be able to get those units out. Note to self. I tried to build less missile turrets because Rotterdam always makes fun of me. I should build more. This is why. I tried, Roddy. You trusted me! And I failed you! So anyway, my opponent has a bunch of Tempests. I'm going to send Hellions to do run-bys. Because that's what heroes do. Oh, that's a juicy shot. Noise! Eventually, the shield battery does run out of energy, just so you guys know. They don't last forever. They're not energizers. I'm not even sponsored by them. I don't know why I'm saying that. So the Tempests are going to come over. And there's just not really a lot he can do. It's like, yeah, do you want to shoot a missile turret? I guess. But I've got a lot of Thors. And now I'm at the point where my Thors can actually truck through a lot of the forces that my opponent has. I'm also using sensor towers, so I know if he comes close. It's kind of hard to see the white lines on the sand, but they are there. And I say, you know what? All right, let's pull some SCVs to repair. I think it's always important to pull SCVs to repair when you're playing mech. And I'm just going to engage him in the middle of the map. There's nothing he can do because he's so heavily invested into Tempest. And Tempests have been nerfed. They move so much more slowly. Seriously, honestly, I think these kind of look like they're moving quick. But they used to move like 25% faster than this, which is insane to think about. And he can't poke because the Tempest has less range than the Thor does. So if I have a bunch of Thors, you're stuck. And that's it. Game over. GG. I hope you guys enjoyed this demonstration of a little bit of Mech and Terran versus Protoss. I will hopefully be making some more video content over the next few weeks. My live stream is going to be mostly Resident Evil. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have an absolutely amazing day.